Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be answering a two-part question, and that is, why are Tag Heuer watches considered to have such a bad reputation amongst the watch community, and are they even good watches? So now, before I get any further, wrist check. I'm wearing a Tag Heuer Link chronograph. I think that it was appropriate to wear a tag for this video, so here it is. Obviously, if you do like the content, make sure to drop a like down below and subscribe to see more awesome stuff in the future. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's just jump right into the content. The very first thing that we're going to cover in this video is the basically reasons why Tag Heuer has gotten themselves into a bit of a pickle with the watch community. So on the first thing, I'm going to say inflated MSRP values, which I don't believe that they are a good value, or I can't necessarily recommend Tag Heuer as good value, and I don't believe that they are good value watches for the prices that they're charging. I think that you are better off going with, especially like for instance, an Aqua Racer at $3,500 Canadian. You're better off looking at something like a Longines Hydro Conquest, Oris Aquis, or like a Rado Captain Cook. That's just my personal opinion on there, but I don't believe that they are good value for money. And that also comes with their resale value. Their resale value plummets as soon as you leave the AD. And that's why I would highly suggest buying them used or buy them gray market, where the prices are a little bit more reasonable. Or if you get a really steep discount from the AD, take it. Another thing that I would say really kind of gets people's goat is what Tag did to the Heuer brand. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, obviously Tag basically Tag kind of bought Heuer and slapped their name on it back in 1985. It was a Saudi Arabian holding company that I believe is based actually out of Luxembourg, and they purchased it. Now, obviously, today it is owned by LVMH, the Louis Vuitton group right now, and obviously in the 1980s, up until kind of the early 2000s, they were producing a lot of really, really ugly, gaudy watches, and that didn't help the brand image. And basically, to the extent of how the watch enthusiasts would probably think is that they were floating and basically taking on the Heuer name, but actually not doing anything good with it, and rather just slapping stuff on there and being like, oh, we're going to sell it, we're going to sell it, we're going to sell it. Also, you have like the Link. Now, obviously, the Tag Heuer Link is a bit of a controversial piece in and of itself. A lot of people hate the bracelet. They say it's really ugly. I understand what Tag Heuer was doing when they designed the bracelet. I think they wanted to make something that was like, super iconic that you could see from a mile away. The only problem is it turned out to in a lot of cases, especially the older iterations, it was pretty darn ugly. And it didn't help with some of the two-tone variations that they were doing. Now, I think this iteration, I personally believe it's a very beautiful bracelet. I actually like it quite a bit, and it's very, very comfortable. And so there's that. I also, it's like if you think about the bezels on the F1 series, they're pretty just really ugly. So Tag Heuer was making a lot of really, really cheap, cheapening the brand, Heuer brand itself, and making a lot of quartz pieces and quartz derivative pieces, and focusing catering and mass marketing everywhere to basically, I would say, just water down the brand. Now, another thing that people get really antsy about with Tag Heuer is the fact that you actually don't know what movement's in the watch. So if you go into the AD and you look at a Tag Heuer Aqua Racer, and I know I'm going to use the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer for a bunch of the examples because it's a kind of one of their very popular watches outside of like the Carrera lineup. But you go in, and what's going to happen is you're going to ask what kind of movement's in it. And they're basically going to be like, oh, it's a caliber blank. Caliber 5 usually is what it is. And so they're going to tell you that it's caliber this. And the only problem is you're going to ask, well, what movement is it? Well, the thing is they source that movement. It's a third-party movement. It's either an EDIT 2824 or it's a Sellita SW200. The thing is you don't know which one it is until you crack the case back off or you check the serial number. And as a watch enthusiast, I think that, you kind of do actually want to know what the movement is in your watch. It would be kind of like buying a car and not knowing the exact engine that's in your car. And mind you, the 2824 and the SW200, they're basically clone movements of each other. But still, you would kind of like to know where it came from. And I think that Tag Heuer, I just don't think they did a really good job with that in that aspect. Another thing that I've noticed, a little bit of a complaint, is the discrepancy between the entry-level quartz pieces they kind of flooded the market with, and their higher-end automatics. You take a look at the Aqua Racer. You can look, and they have one which is a very plain dial, boring, honestly, at that point, and the finishing isn't, like, it isn't as good with the quartz piece as the automatic piece. And it's just like the discrepancy in this is very, it's just very, I get it. You pay more money, you get a better product, but I think that like most other brands would just have a quartz derivative. It just wouldn't just be like, all right, well, here's the basic of basic bare bones just so you can get into the brand. If you want to be a respected Swiss luxury brand, I think you should have consistent build quality across the entire range, if that makes sense. And then there's also the debacle that happened with the 1887 movement, which was basically when Tag, they lied about having an in-house movement and this, and I mean, I understand the history behind it is interesting. Obviously, ETA, which was a Tag Heuer sources a bunch of these parts through, or their movements through, and basically they, in the early 2010s, they decided they didn't, they might hold back on that. So Tag Heuer kind of panicked, and they're like, okay, well, we should probably develop a new in-house caliber, because a lot of their watches honestly are chronographs because they're famous for chronographs, and they decide to create this 1887 caliber. But the problem is they borrowed, and I'm not really gonna say sorry, they didn't borrow, they actually purchased the copyright and the intellectual property of Seiko for one of the Seiko chronographs. And yes, they did modify it. They did basically build it from the ground up afterwards, but it's still at the heart and principle soul is still a Seiko movement. And when they finally released it, everybody got super suspicious, and they're like, isn't this a Seiko movement? And everybody kind of got really angry, and then they had to backpedal. So honestly, it would have been better had they just been honest to begin with and been like, yeah, we purchased the intellectual property and rights from Seiko, and we designed the movement based upon, yeah. But they didn't. So that's another thing that I would say is kind of problematic with that. Now, if you've been not watching up to this point, you might think it's all doom and gloom. It's not. I actually have kind of mixed opinions on the brand, but I think overall they do make good watches. Here's why. First of all, anything with a Valjoux 7750 in it is a good watch, to be honest. Are their prices a little high? Yes. Should you buy them brand new? No. You should buy them either gray market or steep discount on an AD or on the used market. They're great watches at that point. Should you be purchasing really the quartz pieces? Probably not. I just don't think the build quality is there. But overall, I think they're good watches. I think that they're going to be kind of just as reliable as any of your other basic watches. The fact that you're going to be using like the ETA or Sellita movements, for instance, the Sellita movement is going to be found in the Oris Aquis. It's not any different. Like, third-party movements aren't the issue. I think the issue is that you've tarnished your reputation. The idea is, how can we get the reputation back when you've been sold in as a non-exclusive item, but just seen as an aspirational item to the normal public, but not actually to watch enthusiasts? And I think that you have to recapture people's interest for Tag Heuer. People have to actually like the brand again. And because honestly, I used to think that they were kind of trash tier watches. I just was like, they're overpriced fashion. Nah. Honestly, it didn't change until I picked this guy up. And I did a little bit of research on the brand. Because I always thought that they were just kind of overpriced, and I was just like, why? Like, they just make weird stuff. You don't know what movements in it, stuff like that. And I kind of bought into a lot of the negativity surrounding the brand. And then I picked this guy up and I put it on the wrist, and actually I think it's a pretty good watch. Would I buy it brand new? No, I wouldn't. But I don't think it's a bad watch. And I think a lot of people would say, oh, Tag Heuer makes junk. It's not junk. It just might not be good value. And I think it's a good watch. It's just not good value, if that makes sense. And I think that's where we can draw the line. And what I mean by good value is I don't think it's good value at the MSRP value, not necessarily good value in general. I think they make cool watches. I think there's a lot of cool things. I think there's good upside to the brand. But anyways, I'm going to leave it off there. In the next video, I'm going to be talking about what I would do to kind of just change their brand image. And, obviously, if you do like the video, make sure to drop a like down below. Subscribe to see more awesome stuff in the future. And with that, I'm going to leave it off there. So take care and have a fantastic day.